Hello, and welcome to another episode of Plastic Surgery Unfiltered, a podcast at the intersection of healthcare, business, and the beauty industry. I'm your host, Dr. Armando Davila, and today I'm joined by Katie Enos, our resident rejuvenation expert.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Happy to be here. Very good.
Today's episode, there's no peptide for a bad lifestyle. We're going to talk peptides.
Sounds
finally. Good. So, Katie, I've decided this is going to be like a three-part series. So today we're going to talk about, I think, the peptides themselves and really how they integrate with the overall health and beauty and aesthetic landscape. Mm-hmm. The next episode, we're going to be joined by Dr. David Tur, and this is going to be really for the people who are prescribing the peptides to talk about the regulatory industry and how they can sort of stay safe and they can make sure their patients stay safe when they're prescribing or when they're providing the peptides. Mm-hmm. And then the last episode we'll be joined by Kristen, and we're going to talk really about the business of the peptides itself and how that has integrated with the healthcare industry as a whole. So we're going to cover healthcare business and the beauty industry. So
Love it. Excited.
So let's get started. I want to start with something strange that's happening in medicine, and it's been on the news a lot, which is that you're seeing a rise in colon cancer in really young people, people even in their 30s, some people in their 20s, and they're dying from colon cancer. And the people who treat this are sort of like panicking, like what's happening, what's going on, and they're trying to do these studies to identify a single cause, but there isn't a single cause, and the real pattern is that you essentially have this, these higher levels of ultra-processed food, less fiber, disrupted gut health, and all this stress. And it's like, it's not that there was like one bad decision that led to it. It's like a bunch of them, like a lot of small little patterns compounding over time. And so, when you look at that concept of like colon cancer rising and diet, like what stands out, I think, for you the most about the process or like this idea of small habits?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what stands out to me the most is like our diets probably, and all of, again, like you mentioned, the processed foods, where you go into the grocery store today and it's like hard to get anything but processed foods, right. Which I think plays a huge part into it. And then also many people now are leaning towards these like high protein diets, like we talked about, and all sorts of different trends in diets.
Do you feel like your generation, like I know from my perspective, right, we grew up like the big diet that was, and not to blame it on a single diet, but the big diet that kind of exploded during my generation when I was young is the Atkins diet. This idea that you could eat like low carb, right? And you were seeing a rise in diabetes, eat low carb, and then just eat a ton of meat, and that would be fine. Obviously, like there was really unhealthy meats being eaten, rise in coronary artery disease,
cholesterol.
and the point was not eat low carb. It was like we're supposed to be eating healthy carbs, not processed carbs. Is there a fad diet that's like affecting your generation, or you think it's like still a pretty high protein diet?
I still think I would say they don't necessarily call it the Atkins diet. They just say like keto. Yeah. Like that's kind of like the name, and everyone's like, oh, I'm going to try keto. Okay. So they don't necessarily call it the Atkins.
Yeah, I mean, and then they're like, they sell those little pens that like measure your ketosis level and all this sort of stuff, which is basically like starve your body from carbs.
Yeah, and like when you go into like the grocery store nowadays, it's like there's keto bread, there's keto bars, there's keto chocolate, keto everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure that keto bread is like the most processed bread on the planet. Yeah. Like it can't be keto and bread.
When you look at the ingredients, it's not great.
Yeah. Okay, and so like what's interesting to me is that we've actually seen this before, right? If you go back to like if that was affecting the millennial generation and now theoretically going to continue affecting the Gen Z generation, one thing I saw in the Gen X, right, and tail end of boomers is problems with skin, right? And so we see this in the patients we treat for consults and our skincare consults and things like that. So, and this was tanning. Okay. Like how do you think that tanning has ultimately affected a lot of the patients that we see for laser treatment, skincare, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of those people in those generations, you know, it was like the laying out with baby oil type of deal at the beach, no sunscreen whatsoever. And then, you know, obviously sun creates a ton of damage to the skin, and they were doing that for years and years and years. And so when you come in for a consultation about skin and skin damage, it's hard to reverse all of those years of damage from the sun.
I mean, like, I think that the actual data point here is that 90% of all of visible aging on the skin surface is actually attributed to UV.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to completely avoid, right? Like the sun generates our energy and gives us vitamin D, and we need that. Yeah. But it also is generating a UV damage. Same thing with when we talk about stress and oxidative stress, we breathe oxygen, right? We need oxygen to live. But that oxygen under stress conditions forms free radicals or oxidative radicals. That's what you take vitamin C for, and antioxidants to anti-remove oxygen radicals. And so those things, so the oxygen is slowly killing us as well, right? So the UV we need for vitamin D and all this stuff, but it slowly ages our skin, and the oxidative radicals we need the oxygen to breathe and live, but it also kills like our insides. And so I find it interesting, right, that we then used it for like a cosmetic reason, and it wasn't too good for us. And so, you know, when people come in, right, like, what do you see and how do you counsel people when they really want to reverse a lifetime of injury with a single treatment? Like, what is your kind of conversation with them?
Yeah, I mean, my conversation typically does start with the years, and like we said, there's every single day you're having damage to your skin if you're not protecting it, and even with protecting it, there's still damage that you can't prevent. And so I think I do have like a conversation with them about that it's not just going to be like adding one product into your skincare regimen that's going to fix all of those years. It's really about like starting on a journey. You doing skincare, doing lasers, doing BBL to help with the sun damage. And it's not just like gonna fix in one treatment.
I mean, even the skincare, right? I think about some of the products that show the most visible results right away are also the ones that help the least in the long term, right? Again, this is I think people in our industry, we say it all the time. The number one skincare you can buy is a $3 tube of sunscreen. At the drugstore. You don't have to buy the fancy stuff.
Yep.
And so the most powerful components are the ones that don't show a visible result, you know, compared with, like, for example, eye creams, which have like a severe astringent nature and are actually probably terrible for your eyes long term, like look great and get 5-star reviews on Google because like they have a result right away.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what are things that we do? We do things here in the office, I think, that are a little bit more powerful than skincare. Like, what are some things that people can do to reverse some of that cellular aging and damage?
Yeah, I mean, we have obviously our 3 lines, I think, that have really helped people go on that journey with us because, again, a lot of people come in wanting that, like, quick fix. And I think it's important to tell people about the journey and have them come on that with us. So we have our Luminex line, which has a lot of our lasers. Lasers are great for helping to reverse sun damage by using light-based lasers, lasers that actually create trauma to the skin to help stimulate collagen. We even have less invasive things like just doing stuff like dermaplaning and microneedling and, again, stimulating collagen in the skin that is starting to decline and has...
Well, Katie, why do we care so much about collagen? What's the big deal? Like, why is collagen so important?
Yeah, I mean, collagen, obviously, and elastin in our skin is what's going to help keep our skin from aging and looking aged. And so anything that you can do to help stimulate collagen, you start losing it right in your 20s. So, which is sad.
I mean, I sometimes wonder about this. Like, do we just start losing collagen because we just don't make it? I mean, it's like, I think it's complicated, right? And it's like the UV damage does target the collagen molecule, but it also targets the DNA that generates the synthesis of the collagen. I mean, how much of this in the lifestyle world do you think, let me ask it, I guess, convenience versus intention? Like, do you think that people are out there, like in the case of the tanning, it's like they went out with this sort of intention, and how much is it that versus like the world has been made more convenient to be unhealthy?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I also think it's like a big part of trends too. Okay. Like it was popular to go get super tan and look tan, and you looked pretty when you were tan. And so it was like this like need to fit in and sort of thing. And so I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, I wonder, like, I think that doing the right thing is usually the hard thing. Gosh, it's sort of like, why can't the world be the reverse? Like, why couldn't industries and all these companies have like made it easier to like get the fiber? Why was it like, oh, let's just like process the sugar? Is the fiber more expensive to make than the sugar?
Probably.
Maybe. I don't know. And so one of the things that we see, I think, here are trying to make it easier and more convenient for people to choose kind of the right path. And where do you think we struggle, or where do you think the world struggles in kind of providing these easier paths?
I mean, I think that one thing that off the top of my head, just with thinking about like diets and stuff like that, or the cost of things. Okay. So I think that's a struggle for people. Like, you go into the grocery store, you're trying to be healthy. It costs like 2 times the amount to be healthy than to just buy like the cheap processed deli meat.
Yeah, why is that?
I know, it sucks.
Like, I mean, I think that this ties into what I want to talk about in the whole healthcare industry, which is like this idea of the reactivity of healthcare, right? It's like, it's not that it's more expensive to be healthier. It's that the costs are hidden until the bad thing happens, right? It's like, I'm pretty sure getting colon cancer is going to be decently expensive for me with my terrible diet and like my really low fiber and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sitting here now seeing all these reports, and I'm like, oh my God, what can I do to like not get colon cancer, right? So like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get an early colonoscopy, and I'm sure the insurance company is going to be like, no, we're not going to pay for that, right? So I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to pay out of pocket for my colonoscopy. It's probably going to be at least 4 to 5 digits to prevent, I guess, just me eating badly.
Pretty much,
right? Yeah. And so it's like, would it have been more expensive to just like eat healthy, or, and I don't know, was that really what I was thinking when I was picking up that like GMO hormone-laden $5 chicken in college?
Or was it just convenience too?
Yeah. It's hard to know. And so certainly these industries know that we value sort of this short-term convenience, and they create the products around our own behaviors, For sure. So, okay, I think that like, let's finally get into peptides. My opinion is that peptides are just the next version of this, right? So if I went on the internet and I was like, well, you could get a colonoscopy and you could, cut out early cancer or whatever, or you could take this magic peptide. And it is so magical that the government won't even let us study it, right? Yes. And it is just going to cure your colon cancer. Gosh, it sure sounds like I'd give it a go.
Sounds magical.
Sounds magical, And, is that why peptides have gotten more popular? I mean, what do you think has driven this rise in peptides?
Yeah, I mean, I think that peptides are obviously right now being really well marketed. So I think that's one part of it. But I also think the hype comes in because they make it sound like a shortcut to things, a shortcut to weight loss, a shortcut to anti-aging, to performing better, building muscle quicker, all sorts of things like that. And again, it's people want like a quick fix. So.
I mean, we are, especially now, we're a very immediate gratification society. You know, Amazon has gone from 1 week to 2 day to 1 day to now it's like 4 hours.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, I want my thing. I want it now. Here's the problem, right? Most of these peptides are signal modifiers, right? And I don't know if people really understand what peptides are actually doing. But essentially, they insert themselves within the chain of signals or the chain of the process, and they essentially modify the fundamental process of the start and the finish, right?
Yep.
And so, like, they do not fundamentally rebuild the system or alter either the historical system or modify the system in the future, right?
Yes.
And so, like, let's start with one that is obviously very, very popular right now, GLP-1s.
Yeah.
That's your Ozempics, your Mounjaros, your semaglutide, your tirzepatide. Those are peptides, right?
Yeah.
And so what do those do for people who seemingly are under a rock? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like if you are looking into GLPs, what most people think, they suppress your appetite. And so that is essentially what they're doing for most people. But, the way that they work is not complex, but they are peptides. So, and they're just like all these other peptides that are on the market, short chains of amino acids that send signals to cells.
Signals to cells. And so, the GLP-1s, again, have been around for like decades. Right, decades. And so why now? Why do they matter now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they came into, like, there was a big boom in them for weight loss specifically. And then, but again, they were used for diabetes before. And so then whenever people started realizing that people were losing weight, and obviously that helped their diabetes, and then people started using them probably a little bit out of context and not essentially what they were used for or meant to be for, but
yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that, my mom, if she listens to the podcast, went, and when these came out, I was like, Mom, these are new drugs. And she's like, no. Like, I got put on this in like the 90s, the 2000s, not the 90s, 2000s. And it was awful. Like, I had all these side effects, like it kind of really caused all these problems. And so I stopped. And it's sort of interesting that I think people are powering through the side effects now a little bit because it's like popular to use. But it goes to show you how this small chain of amino acids and the signaling pathway can affect other signaling pathways. And with the GLP-1s, right, what have we seen? We've seen, Ozempic face, and we've seen collagen degradation. We've seen like outside of the ordinary muscle loss. I think I have about 40% lean muscle loss with the GLP-1s that isn't even present in like standard style weight loss. And so, how much of that you're losing is fat versus lean body mass.
And I think too that I try to have that conversation with my patients is that, again, this it's like almost like a shortcut medication, and that you still need to be like doing the things to keep you healthy, working out, lifting weights to help prevent some of that like muscle loss essentially with the medications. I
mean, I would argue that you can't just be doing what you were doing. You have to be doing even more, right?
Yes.
Because now the medication is altering a different pathway.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like that's why we pair, our GLP-1s with like M-Sculpt, right? Because we need to help people super therapeutically build muscle, while they're losing weight. And so they have all those kind of downstream effects, right? And so like what are some other like what are some other peptides? Let's come over some other ones, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think one that's big in the beauty industry right now is the copper peptide.
Okay.
A lot of people are using that one topically, not injected, but
I mean, they are injecting it.
Yeah. Some people are, but like topically microneedling it,
yeah, sure.
I guess. So I think that's a big one for, again, collagen stimulation, which is a huge thing. The word collagen right now, I think, in the beauty industry is booming.
Yeah,
so, and always has been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have the copper peptide, again, is being, and we'll talk about the regulatory pathway, but it does seem to have some evidence in early studies, like especially as a topical for wound regeneration and kind of altering wound pathways. Now, copper is obviously a heavy metal. Injecting copper will lead to heavy metal poisoning generally over time. And so we're not entirely sure, again, what's happening with this sort of unregulated use of the copper peptide. And, when you inject it, again, it has a very short course of action. So when you're doing it with your topical treatment, you have to be doing this like sort of constantly, right? Okay, let's go over what are the ones? I know like the hormone ones, like the Relins. What's
like
the deal on those?
Samorelin,
Yeah,
like
Samorelin,
those, Tesamorelin. I think those are probably the two most common right now. Tesamorelin is like the one that's FDA approved. So I think more people are using that one.
What does that do?
The Tesamorelin increases growth hormone,
Okay.
helps reduce visceral fat, but it's technically FDA approved in the HIV population.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, right? Because it's a growth hormone pathway and increases the process of growth hormone, but what its downstream effect is almost like a side effect, which is reduction of visceral fat in a pathway that we don't totally understand. Yeah. And the other, like Relins or Morlins, like don't do that.
They don't.
But they also increase growth hormone.
Stimulate growth hormone.
So I really think that highlights what I call the dirty nature of these peptides, where they signal things. And just because we create the chain and we know it signals something, we don't know what else it's signaling and causing problems with it. So that was challenging.
Yeah, I think that's also why with peptides and the growing trends, like I'm a little bit hesitant on things because you don't know all of the downstream effects of all of these, and them not being FDA approved. And I know we'll talk about that at a later time, but something to think about.
Yeah, and every drug that's generated by the FDA isn't going to have you're not going to know what the 20-year effect is. But I do think that we're talking about a risk-benefit trade-off. And when you're talking about medications that have to be sort of given daily or given very frequently, again, it is ultimately that downstream effect, even in the short term, causing problems. I think that right now there's a bunch of stuff about blindness with GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And it's that's always existed, right? It's just
20 years ago.
Even 20 years ago. It's just that now many more people are using it.
Them.
And so same thing, increase with medullary thyroid cancer.
Yep. And
when you come to a physician and we do a medical history and we hear you have a cancer history and a thyroid cancer history, we don't prescribe this.
Yep.
But people are just getting it on the internet and maybe they didn't read about the fact that it causes thyroid cancer and then it's causing thyroid cancer 10 years later, right? So, okay, what about the repair peptides, the BPCs and the TBs and what's those?
BPC 157, marketed for tissue repair, inflammation, and then you have your TB 500, which supports injury recovery, essentially.
And so what are those doing exactly? I don't totally understand.
What they're being used in conjunction with.
Yeah.
I think people that are, I think about athletes using these, where they're doing heavy workouts, they're trying to get, build muscle, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's funny. These don't have strong evidence, but are actually one of my favorites.
Yeah.
The reason is that the short-term effect makes sense in the context of what they're being used for. So if you have an elite athlete who does a heavy workout and wants sort of immediate returns or immediate kind of gains, to return back to being an elite athlete, it could make sense if it's actually doing what it says it's doing. Again, this is mostly animal data and unsure in humans at the dosage is problematic.
Yeah.
But I think when you use these kind of I'm just going to like I'm a regular Joe, I'm going to go work out at the gym and use this. It's probably not
worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah. It's probably not doing enough.
Yeah,
doing
at
enough.
this point.
And so am I going to inject myself daily with this thing to like, quote, repair my cells? Like my cells are repairing themselves just fine. Right. Okay. So, and so I think that like what I want to separate this from is the idea of, you know, like when you do a laser, I think of it like a reset.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you do something that resets your biology, you shouldn't have to be doing it every day. And so the fact that you need to be doing these things constantly tells you something about what it's doing. It's not fixing the system. It's not altering it. It's just kind of hanging out.
You're supporting it.
You're supporting it.
Yeah.
So like, why has the marketing been so effective? Like what do you think, why do you think people confuse this signaling with like actual long-term repair?
I mean, I think for myself, I think that I see a lot on social media.
Okay.
And so I think that like influencers using them and things like that, that their like life has completely changed, that they feel so much better. And everyone is looking for that. You know, like they want to feel better. They want to look better. And so I think that has the way that it's marketed, even with just influencers, is...
Tell me more. So like, what are they saying? Like, I guess.
Yeah, like they'll be like, oh, I went to my, you know, wherever they're getting their peptides, and they did like a hormone panel for me, and I had all of these things that were out of whack.
Okay.
And they gave me peptides, and now I feel so much better. I'm feeling great, and so everyone is like looking for that, and so they try it.
But do you think it's that they're actually getting peptides, or is peptides just a small component of their total therapy?
I mean, I'm sure it's a small component, and whether they're saying that or not is, you know, I don't know.
Because they don't know.
They don't know. And so they're probably getting some form of hormone therapies and, you know, also maybe doing peptides. But a lot of these people are also having these like peptide mixtures. Like they're not even sure which peptide they're getting.
Okay.
And so I think that creates a little bit of a problem too.
I mean, that's how these companies are selling it. They're just sort of blending it all in one tube, and it's just like
they're calling
injected.
It skinny shot or like whatever it is.
I mean, skinny shot is at least the GLP-1. I don't know if they're like blending the GLPs, but like maybe.
I don't know. They're calling stuff all sorts of names.
Okay.
So.
I mean, so like, right, like, you know, we do like hormone therapy here, right? And so I do think, right, you think that can help people feel better, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what about the one that like helps with your libido?
Yeah, I think that one is the Cimax and the bromolinitide.
Yeah, bromolinitide. Yeah.
That one, I don't know much about that one, and I haven't heard of anyone using that one actually. So,
yeah, I mean that one I think we want to really bring to the table.
I would
here.
like to learn more about that one.
Yeah, and I think that's one that I'm looking to introduce, because I think when you have, you know, hormone dysregulation, you know, you can lose libido, and there can be other kind of downstream functions, and so that feels like a peptide that might get sort of mixed in. And so again, how does that present itself on social media? I feel so much better. Like my marriage is better, my sex life is better, and so but it's probably like a combination of things and not just one.
Yeah, because like again, I mean I do hormone therapy now, and I hear those things even with just hormone replacement alone.
Okay.
So
yeah,
so, which is
good. Yeah,
which is great.
The you know, ultimately I think that like back to like our original concept as we wrap up, it's that, you know, you're trying to think if you're just like you have terrible financial like wherewithal, and you're just like spending money constantly, and you have like a big financial problem, like downloading an app it can help you, but it's not going to solve your like financial misbudgeting, right? Correct. And I like to think of peptides that way. Like along your journey and your goals, right? If you want to lose weight, if you want to become stronger, if you want to work out more or build muscle mass or whatever it is, these peptides can be signaling molecules that help you, quote unquote, budget. Yeah, that support you. But it isn't going to erase the fundamental bad budgeting, right? And so, you know, I think if you would say, right, if something actually fixed the system, you wouldn't necessarily need to take it every day, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you can see that in any medication that we take every day, right?
Yep.
Like people who are on diabetes medications, they take like, metformin or whatever. Yep. It's not fixing their pancreas, right? Yes. And it doesn't mean that it's not a good drug, and it doesn't mean that peptides are not a good solution. It just, it's not going to erase the years. Yeah, the past, right?
Not going to erase the past, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that like our health, right? And what I want to really focus on in the organization, what we do here, right, is I'm trying to reframe the concept of how we encounter our medicine, right? So much of our medicine continues to be reactive. Yep. We just have all these terrible behaviors that we then want to sort of erase with. And not only do we want to erase it, we want to erase it quickly and instantaneously. And it's not going to work. You have your inputs, you have all the things you eat, how you sleep, how you do things, the stress exposures, and then you have these interventions like skincare, procedures, medications, and peptides, and we're just part of that sort of journey, right? Yeah. So for people who are listening to this, right, if you had to prioritize one of the elements, what would be your priority, I think?
Like if I had to prioritize skincare...
Like, I guess if you had to prioritize the hierarchy of health, right? Like, what is the way we live longer, healthier lives? Like, what is the best way to kind of start with that process?
I mean, I think overall it's your lifestyle and how you eat and how you exercise and how you sleep.
Okay. Like prevention, I think.
Prevention, for sure. And that's something that I think I'm passionate about is preventative medicine. Yeah. And so, doing those things to prevent the other things from happening.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that like as an organization, I really like the concept of preventative medicine, right? And that's become more popular as well. Like, for sure. Like, I don't love the preventative Botox concept per se.
I don't love that.
I don't love that. But I do think it's showing that signaling shift, which is like, how can we be a little bit more proactive about what we're doing rather than waiting till it's already sort of happened. Yeah.
Because once it's happened, it's really hard to reverse and go back.
It's really hard to reverse. And so, I think that peptides have their place. I think that we're going to continue to explore and see where they tie in. But I do think that no matter how much we research them, no matter how much we study them, they're not going to be some magic like bullet that reverses everything, you know? Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We've just touched the surface on peptides here today, and I think we'll get into the regulatory pathway. And this is both for providers who are giving these medications and then also for the consumers that you really know where these are coming from. So join us next time.